Hello and welcome. I am so glad you are here today. Well, if you were a stay-at-home mom, or perhaps you worked part-time during your marriage, and now you're faced with finding a job after your divorce, well, listen in as Maggie Carrington, a seasoned HR strategist and business advisor with more than 35 years of experience and founder of HR Habitude and Candor and Courage at Work, shares her wisdom. This is the Silver Divorce Podcast, broadcast from the Whitfield Media Group studios in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Please follow this show and share it with people you know who are facing divorce. We are proudly brought to you by our title sponsor, the Center for Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, and show sponsor, Medicare Misty. Center for Sports Medicine and Orthopedics is the area's leading provider of multi-specialty orthopedic care. Using innovative surgical techniques and technologies, our team of specialists deliver exceptional results backed by exceptional patient care. Learn more at sportmed.com. Medicare Misty is a real person who can help answer your Medicare questions. Get real help from her team at medicaremisty.com. And I'm your host, Lisa McCluskey, and now let's podcast. Welcome, Maggie.
Thank you, Lisa. I really appreciate the invitation.
Well, this is such an important topic, and I read about it every single day. Reentering the job market after a long absence, it has so many challenges. It's everything from the outdated skill set, the changing market conditions, and we all know about self-doubt after a divorce. And then there's age discrimination, because we're talking about an audience that is typically 55 plus, trying to re-enter that job market. And then the process of seeking out and interviewing for a job has changed dramatically.
It has.
Yeah. So we don't want you to be discouraged, though. We want to share some tips. We have an expert here who's going to shed light on how you can be successful. So let's dive in and give you a roadmap to leveraging your experience and getting into the job market after your divorce.
Awesome. Ready to rock and roll.
Let's do it. Okay, but before we start, Maggie, would you share your experience and why you founded HR Habitude and Candor and Courage at Work and what those are?
Sure. Thank you. I spent about a decade in manufacturing, human resources fairly early in my career, and then a couple of decades in commercial real estate in the shopping center industry specifically. And, I was fortunate to be part of a team that achieved cultural transformation in every environment that I was in. And so I always refer to the last place that I worked as helping create the kind of place I always wanted to work. When the opportunity arose a couple of years ago, as I turned 60, to look at what do I want to do for Act 2, the next stage of my career, I really wanted to capitalize on all of those experiences and bring HR Habitude's tagline, making work a better place to be, to life. I had founded HR Habitude in 2011 and maintained it out of vanity and sanity so that I always felt like I had a choice, but really didn't activate it until late 2023.
Okay.
So in conjunction with that, I now provide fractional human resources services to organizations with as few as 5 employees and as many as 2,000 employees. And the opportunity to make work a better place to be, because it's really all about the people. But I'm a business person first, so it's about tying in the people strategy to the business strategy and what creates success for that organization. About the time that I wrapped up and launched HR Habitude, Denise Raby, who's the head of HR for Elders Ace Hardware, suggested to me that we do a podcast together. And we spent a long time discussing how do we take our experiences and share those in a way that could be meaningfully impactful and help other professionals be more successful. And that culminated in Candor and Courage at Work. Our podcast is dropped the first of the month, It's nominally 20 minutes, so it's not a heavy lift for folks. But we're endeavoring to embed the lessons that we learned along the way to enable others to be more successful.
Well, that's fantastic. It sounds like you've been able to keep a passion for HR in your life for quite a long time.
Yeah.
Well, so let's talk about, with your experience in mind and the people that we're talking to, mostly women who they're divorcing, they've been out of the job market for years. Many times they obtained a degree, but then they started raising children and they put their career on hold.
Yeah.
So let's start off with, what are some of the common barriers you see for people re-entering the job market?
I think some of those barriers are really self-evident in the lack of contemporary skills. And so perhaps when they'd gotten their degree and they had achieved a certain level of computer proficiency, for example, that was true at that point in time, and perhaps that hasn't been kept up. And other areas like that, if they were into sciences and things like that, there's been things that have moved ahead while they've been focusing on their families. And so the real challenge is, how do we get skilled up to be competitive with those folks that are currently in the marketplace, but also capitalize on the fact that there's a lot of wisdom that comes ideally from walking the face of the earth longer than others.
Right.
And there's a different set of expectations that folks who have been out of the workplace for a long time have about what they want and what they offer. So I think it's a combination of looking at, what are the strengths that I bring, as well as what are the things that I need to shore up so that I am competitive enough once I really do get the opportunity to explore a role and a position in organization.
So how would you recommend they go about determining what is it they need to shore up? How do they figure that out? What are they missing?
Well, I think it's a multi-step process. So really you think about what the aspirations are. And, I have to pause for just a second, because in thinking about this question, there's so many emotions that come with it. It's the sensation of, I have to get a job versus I get to now at this stage of my life do something other than focus on my family. And that emotion, along with the how do I measure up, self-doubt,
Right.
All around, is something that I don't want to just push aside, because I think it's important for folks to really ensure that they're self-aware enough to own their feelings. They get to feel whatever they feel, but put those into a proper context of, how do I take that and still move forward? One of the places that I love to start, and I talk with folks in career transitions at all stages of their careers, is to recommend the Clifton Strengths Finder.
Okay.
That has been around now for probably half a century, and folks can find it online now. You used to have to go buy the book, but you can do it online now. And it's a $30 investment, so it's a very nominal investment. It is an assessment, Lisa, that enables individuals to really understand what comes to them naturally. And Gallup organization is who developed and deploys this assessment. It is something that takes half an hour nominally, maybe 40 minutes to complete. When you've completed it, you get insights on the 5 things that come to you naturally out of this codified language of 34 strengths that Gallup has developed through their research and deployment of this assessment. The reason I like that is maybe it's something you know about yourself already, and this simply validates it. Mm-hmm. It immediately equips you to be able to have clarity around how you're going to answer questions about what are your strengths. In fact, when I'm talking with folks and I'm talking about this tool specifically, I recommend that they utilize that same language in the interview process. And if someone else recognizes that as StrengthsFinder, they know they're talking with a good organization.
Okay.
Because the main thing to keep in mind is the person who's interviewing for a job is also interviewing the organization.
Right. You want to determine if that's an organization you want to be a part of. Is the culture something that's a good fit for you?
Exactly.
And I was reading recently a conversation about look at what you're passionate about, what you have been doing maybe in service to others, and how can you translate that into a position. And oftentimes, if people have been out of the workforce for a long time, they think they have to start at the bottom of the totem pole, right? They automatically think, oh, I have to go and, maybe be a clerk somewhere, or I need to work at the lowest level job. But that's not necessarily true.
Right. So there's an advantage to having a degree of maturity that they can bring into an organization. And really it is that self-assessment. What volunteer work has been done?
Mm-hmm.
What has that volunteer work looked like? There are a lot of folks in the contemporary workforce today that don't possess really strong organizational skills, a very high degree of self-awareness, a high degree of emotional intelligence. Those are all attributes that any employer will want. And I think that we tend to think about the white collar or pink collar kinds of roles when folks are at a certain age and stage in life. But I wouldn't discount some of the blue collar opportunities. Again, I came out of manufacturing originally, so it's got a great soft place in my heart. And there are incredible opportunities within manufacturing environments, especially in today's modern manufacturing, that may or may not involve what many people envision in working out on the floor. But there are also support roles, and those are organizations that need good people.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You think about those volunteer opportunities where you've perhaps led a major fundraiser, and you might discount that because it was volunteer, but perhaps you led something that raised $1 million. And,
Right.
that's significant.
It is. And it is a matter of taking that inventory. What have I done? Where have I enjoyed the successes? How does that translate into the type of opportunity that I'd be interested in doing for the foreseeable future?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. So how do you go about sitting down and thinking through those? Is there a process that you recommend for me to kind of look at what I've done over the years, and how can I categorize that? Is that the Strength Finder, or is there another process as well?
Well, Strengths Finder gives you some overarching insights and terms like futuristic or learner or strategic or achiever. And then within the resources, which you still can purchase Strengths Finder, the book, and look at the resources that are online, defines those clearly, provides some examples of quotes of individuals who possess those, and even gives some insights into the kinds of roles where those natural innate talents can create a great degree of satisfaction and success. So that is one tool. Historically, I have always recommended that folks take a look at the book, What Color is Your Parachute?
Okay. I remember that one.
Yeah.
Yes.
He wrote that every year from like
Right.
1975, and he passed away just a few years ago. But, and it's not a book to sit down and read cover to cover as much as it is to flip through and look at the varied exercises that he presents that may create that opportunity for you to mind map, to brainstorm with yourself about what those successes are, or what those activities have been that have created a sense of satisfaction and fulfilled needs successfully that you could speak to. For example, your fundraiser. That's no small task.
Not at all.
That is not a skill set that everybody offers.
No, and it came to mind because I was reading recently about a local hospital here that did a fundraiser, and they raised over $2 million, and they had volunteer chairs to working on that.
Yep.
And I thought, that must have been a huge job. How do you translate that if
It is.
you wanted to go and put that to work?
Yeah. But part of that is looking at the fact that it requires a lot of collaboration. So think beyond the hard skills, think about those soft skills, the collaboration, the management of team dynamics effectively to ensure everyone's pulling in the same direction, that teamwork, the clarity of stating that overarching goal and the vision that, is the desired outcome and so forth. Those are all very important skills as well.
And the ability to use influence, right?
Influence is huge.
Persuasion and influence to even articulate a vision so that people come along with you in that vision.
Right.
And that's something that somebody who has life experience and who is more mature and possesses common sense would bring to the table.
Yes. Yes. And so it's capturing all of those and then using that inventory, if you will, to then, I think, if I think about the steps that folks need to go through, part of that is ensuring you have an appropriate and professional presence on LinkedIn.
Yes.
It is the business hub for folks that are in the world of work or aspire to find an opportunity. And I would recommend somebody taking that inventory and beginning to look at profiles of other individuals who are currently in roles that are similar to what they might be interested in. And so it is part of that exploration of how am I going to articulate this? How do I translate this inventory of things that I've enjoyed successes in into an invitation for somebody else to be interested in how I can help them solve a problem. I have always characterized every job as existing only to solve a problem. So how can I help solve the problem within this organization with these tools I have in my tool belt? Continuing along those lines is building out the resume, which even as an HR professional, I can't do my own resume, or maybe especially as an HR professional. I always found it incredibly intimidating to put together my own resume. And sometimes I think it's just that we're so close to it, and we live in a time and in a world where we tend to be highly self-critical. So when you start with a blank piece of paper, proverbial on the computer, or sitting down and you're going to draft it by hand or whatever, it seems like there's just nothing good that you can say about yourself, or you don't know how to say it or whatever. And so getting some help with putting together a professional resume, getting some help with putting together, or at least having a handful of folks that you trust review your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, I want to comment on that, because when somebody has been in a marriage where perhaps they've been belittled or they've been married to a narcissist, they will tend to have come out of that thinking and believing what that other person said about them. And so they have a very hard time coming forward with their good qualities, because they've been accustomed to almost being beaten down verbally by being told that they're less than. Less than is exactly the phrase I was thinking. Yeah. So, as you mentioned, take that time to go through strength finders, to look at what color's your parachute, to think about your qualities, but then, yes, get with a professional who can help draw out from you what those qualities are and translate them to today's work environment. Exactly. And there's some really good resources available, for folks that want that assistance. It is an investment, but it is part of that journey of recapturing who you are and what you offer in a way that enables you to go into a conversation with confidence about how you can solve that problem. Mm-hmm. That's great. And I do want to comment on LinkedIn for just a minute, because it is as you mentioned, the social media site for business today. Significantly grown over the years. I have a very good friend, Stephen Magline. He is the founder of Band of Misfits, and he coaches executives and CEOs. And one of the things he shared with me about LinkedIn is that you have to be engaged. Yes, put your profile out there, but he recommended that you need to be looking at other people's posts. And he says, look at least 10 a day and comment. Comment on, your perspective on what they have posted. And you will find that you will see significant growth by going on every day, staying engaged. Then people will be connecting with you. They'll be curious about who you are. And I have to say, since I retired, I retired in 2021, so I kind of let LinkedIn go a little bit. Then when I started this podcast, I re-engaged and I started to follow that advice. And it is absolutely true. If you're going to be on LinkedIn, don't just put your resume out there and let it languish. Read other people's posts. Think critically about how you can comment to add value and just be seen out there. And you will see that people will start looking at you and they'll start looking at your profile and your impressions will go up.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And when I had a colleague, almost a handful of years now, that recommended that I start posting on LinkedIn, and at the juncture that was recommended, I was like, I don't have the bandwidth for that. How can I add one more thing? And so took a good amount of time between that recommendation and deciding that I would do Thankful Thursday posts.
Oh, that's a great idea.
So it's modeled after the text that my mom and I do every Thursday morning, where we start off with Thankful Thursday and today I'm grateful for, and then we fill in the blank.
I love that.
And so I do that now, and over the course since late 22, endeavored to create content to enlighten, encourage, and inspire. And so sometimes it's very business oriented, sometimes it is not. And because of the bandwidth challenges that I've had over the last couple of months, I have not been as active on LinkedIn. And guess what? Neither have my posts.
Right. Yes, that happens.
And so it is great advice to invest that time, energy, and effort, whether you post or not, to at least read and respond to what you see out there.
Yeah. And I will say that is just as important. Sometimes, I don't post on it maybe once a week. I'll post, but I'm engaging with other people's posts and see the growth from that. Yep. So the bottom line is just be present.
It is.
Don't treat it as though a resume holder. Just be present when you're starting out, and you will see, and it's fun too. You'll learn quite a bit.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a great opportunity to develop that sense of community.
Right.
I'm torn, and I planned on going there and thinking about LinkedIn on the green collar, the open to work.
Yes.
And I say that I'm torn, mostly because of the experiences that I've seen with folks who have commented on whether that's worked for them or worked against them in that environment. So it may be worthwhile to even simply message some individuals once you've started seeing content that they're posting that resonates with you, that you're responding to. Take advantage of the other piece of that platform to direct message that individual and ask them for their thoughts.
Yes.
Should I put on the green collar or should I leave it off? And the green collar is the open to work.
Open to work. And that's great advice. That was the other piece that Stephen shared, was you should be messaging at least 5 people a day. I found that a little difficult myself because I'm not necessarily looking for a job.
Right.
But so those are just some really good tips to think about. And then can we talk about if you've been on a career break, and we talked about getting some professional help in developing your resume, how do you explain that career break during an interview or on your resume? And should you say, I've been a stay-at-home mom? Should you even put that forward?
Yeah, so I think that the phrase I like is family time or caring for family or whatever, because people take breaks for different reasons. And so many of the folks that you and I are envisioning in the listening audience that this topic hope is going to be most helpful to have in fact raised their families. But there are folks that have taken a break to care for parents or a sibling or something. And so I tend to be a very private person, so I just don't want to put it all out there, because I think the more you say, the more there is for somebody to judge. And in the business environment, putting it on the resume, so from X date to X date, cared for family, is to me the extent that needs to be explained. Okay. And even in the interview process, I was very fortunate, maybe as a way to say it is, I was very fortunate to be in a position to be able to focus on caring for my family. And now I'm ready to get back into the workforce and just move the conversation along.
Right. Yeah, that's good advice. And then in that next breath, would you talk about some of the experiences that you had, some of the passions in service to others that could translate to the work?
Yeah. And so, when someone's interviewing, I always recommend that they follow the lead of the interviewer. There are some really good interviewers, and there are some who are not. And so the experience may vary widely. I
sure.
guess it's just the best way to say that.
There are some people who dread interviewing.
Well, I think most of us do, because we do feel like we're getting, evaluated.
Right.
This is like the epitome of a test. But follow the lead of the interviewer. So if the question is, well, I see on your resume you didn't work outside the home, or however it's characterized from X to X. But if you've put it on the resume, the interviewer may not even ask about it. So there's no need to volunteer that unless it comes up naturally in the conversation. And I would wait and look for the opportunity then to introduce, these are the things that I picked up in terms of skills and achievements and successes along the way because of the volunteer work that I did, or the engagement in the school system that I contributed to, or whatever that may be. And if someone is in a position where they've not done as much of that kind of thing as maybe would serve them well, or they would have liked for any number of reasons, now's the time to jump in.
Okay.
Because the immediate thing that does is expand your network.
Yes.
Immediately. You're connecting with other individuals. At some point in time, you get to share your story about where you're at in your professional journey, and look to those individuals to act on your behalf.
That's great advice. Think about all of the things that you have been involved in at church, in school, volunteer opportunities. How many of those people can you reach out to and even just let them know, I'm looking for an opportunity. Yep. Most jobs are secured via networking.
Absolutely. In fact, there's an inverse ratio statistically, and my favorite things in God we trust, everybody else bring data. So
right.
Statistically, there's an inverse ratio to the number of applications submitted and the number of opportunities that an individual really gets to explore. It's a mind game that you need to be submitting 40 applications a day or whatever. And the technology will enable you to do that quite readily. But it's not a targeted approach, and it's not as effective as networking.
Right. And this is one instance where oftentimes coming out of a divorce, or while you're going through divorce and you're realizing I need to have a job, you're embarrassed. I went through that myself. I didn't tell anybody I was getting divorced for 3 months because I was embarrassed, and feel a little bit of a failure for getting divorced. And you're not at all. There's so many things that happen in life, but so women may not feel as though they can reach out to those networks because they don't want to have to explain I don't want to have to explain why I have to get a job, but your network is your strength, and you don't have to tell people the whole story.
That's a good point.
You don't have to answer questions. You can just say, I'm going through a life transition right now. I'm ready to jump into the workforce. I'm looking for opportunities. If there's something that you're aware of, I would love it if you would share that with me.
Yep.
And when you're comfortable and you're ready to share what's happening in your life, then you can do that. But don't hold back from reaching out to those people who they work side by side with you on a fundraiser, or you see them every time at church, or maybe you've served as a host at church, and so many people. Just sit and think about all the interactions that you've had in the last, year, 6 months. You'll be shocked at how many people that you actually know who could help you in the job search.
And help is the key word.
Mm-hmm.
I have not encountered many people over the course of my career that would decline helping someone else if they'd been asked.
Right. Because it feels good, right? Feels good to help somebody.
Exactly. It's, we are here to help one another.
Got an injury that just can't wait? There's no need to delay your care. Center for Sports Medicine and Orthopedics is excited to announce that our Urgent Ortho Walk-In Clinic is now available on Saturdays at the Gun Barrel Road location. Open from 8 to noon, we're here to treat sprains, strains, fractures, and more. No appointment needed. So skip the long ER wait and get specialized orthopedic care fast. Visit us this Saturday at Center for Sports Medicine and Orthopedics Urgent Ortho. We're the center for expert care right when you need it. Learn more at sportmed.com.
Along the lines of networking, because I don't want to miss this opportunity to suggest to our listeners that there are some other groups that are worthy of consideration. Particularly if you live in a small-ish town, connecting with a chamber of commerce,
yes,
is really a key to knowing what's coming in, what's happening in the business environment, and so forth. In our area specifically, and really around the world, Robert Half is a phenomenal organization to connect with. They offer not only the immediate expansion of your network, but their livelihood is really based on helping folks work through career transitions. Their goal is to enable the marriage. Since we're talking about divorce, every relationship, including the employment relationship, is just like a marriage. The marriage of good candidates with good organizations. Aside from that, one of the things that people may not know is that if you register with Robert Half, and I recommend doing that, I recommend going in and meeting with a local team. You don't have to tell your story. You just have to say, hey, I'm here looking for this kind of opportunity. Is that they offer to registered candidates free training.
Oh.
So somebody can go in and brush up on their Microsoft skills and things like that. That's not the only resource. Coursera is another resource that offers free training to individuals. It's a nonprofit, and there's all kinds of resources to help upskill and develop skills through either of those organizations. But Robert Half is definitely the one that immediately expands the network. Mm-hmm. And they're not the only one. There are other fine organizations that provide temporary and regular employment placement services. So it doesn't have to be Robert Half. They're just top of mind for me.
Okay. And then also, we can't forget the community colleges as well.
Great point.
Oftentimes, the community colleges have resources that are at no cost, or being an adult re-entering the workforce, you can qualify for some grants to have some training covered as well. And I know you talked about manufacturing. Many of those organizations have on-the-job training.
Correct. Yeah. There are, I have a client that has an academy within their building, and that academy is to enable individuals to come in and learn a very specific skill that's simply not being taught in the high schools or even at the collegiate level. And so those kinds of learning opportunities, employers have developed mechanisms to enable them to attract talent who have an interest in learning a particular skill. It's win-win.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. So expand your horizon.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That's great. I want to step back for a minute and I want to talk about, we spoke about the interview a little bit, but what about when you're going into an interview and it's a much younger interviewer? Talk about a little of the complexities of that, and that can be very intimidating for somebody.
It can be, but I think the smart thing to do is to anticipate that to be true most of the time. If you're getting an interview, when you're at this age and stage of life, the odds are better than not the person you're going to be interviewing with is going to be younger. So a little bit of time, energy, and effort to take a look at what the generalizations are, and I hate stereotypes, but what the different generations in the workplace are looking for themselves, and just having an awareness of that in an effort to make a connection with the individual. I encourage folks to keep in mind that individual has a professional responsibility and they're looking to solve a problem. So it's still about making the connection and enabling the individual to see how you can solve the problem. Ageism is the last fully acceptable form of discrimination left in our country today, in my opinion. And even that is getting better. That is, I have talked with organizations and individuals in organizations who, for good and valid reasons, have said to me, I'm really only interested in hiring folks who are over 50.
Wow.
And part of that is they recognize some of those, again, generalized, stereotypical, generational differences between the commitment to work, the work ethic, and so forth, that on a stereotypical basis, the boomers bring.
Right.
And so there's still the thought process, particularly when you hit 60 and someone's looking at you and they're 2 decades younger and they're like, you're only going to work 5 more years. You don't know that.
That's right.
Right? They may only work 5 more years. There may be something tragic that comes into their life that prevents them from being able to work beyond age 45. And so I have worked with a lot of hiring managers over the years and even within the client base that I'm working with currently and in helping them identify talent, calling that out as you can't assume anything about anybody in terms of how long they might be prepared to stay with you or might be able to stay with you. And so don't let that be a deterrent to really looking at who is the candidate who's best suited to meet your needs.
And that's spot on, because if you look at the boomer generation, they're working into their 70s.
Yeah.
And not because they have to, but because they love what they're doing. And, they're not ready to go home and sit on the couch. I never thought I would be a podcaster at 68, but here I am.
Well, when I left my last company, I said, I'm not retiring, I'm refiring.
That's right. I love that. That's great.
So, yeah.
So let's talk about, just for a minute, we prepare for an interview thinking about ourselves and how we're going to answer particular questions. But talk about preparing for the interview from the other perspective. Looking at the company, what research should we be doing? Even if you know who your interviewer is, what are some tips there to get ready for that interview?
Man, in today's environment, you can go in fully armed. You may not even need to pull out anything that you've learned. But I start the interview with, tell me what you know about the organization. That's where I start every interview. And that tells me, their response tells me, how much time, energy, and effort did they invest ahead of time? Because every organization has some public information, whether it be their website, whether it be media coverage, any number of resources like that. It's all online.
Right.
You can learn almost anything. I would say the same thing about the interviewer. Go on LinkedIn.
That's
Look
right.
at their profile.
Yeah.
See, what their path has been. Not that you're going to come in and talk with them about their path, but just having that understanding and appreciation for it enables you to have a higher level of confidence in knowing what you're looking at. And I do remind folks, you are interviewing the organization as much as they're interviewing you.
Absolutely.
Go in with good and meaningful questions that hopefully you'll get to ask. What's it like to work here? What kind of investment does the organization make in the continuing career development for folks? That's the number one reason people leave. That or their manager.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Right.
It's a close tie. But asking questions that are important to you. How much flexibility do you offer? If that's important to you, is this job entirely on site or is it hybrid? That's an important factor in today's environment. Some people need to know that they can work remotely to take care of certain needs, or they just simply have a preference because maybe they get more done on the days where they're not getting interrupted in an environment. So going in with good, meaningful questions, but yes, do that research. And the one thing that I will say, because I don't want to miss the opportunity, we talked about LinkedIn and that being the business social media site. Because of the vastness of social media, period, one thing that I encourage anybody who's in the job hunt to do is to look at critically their own social media.
Oh, yes.
So go out to your Facebook, go out to Instagram, TikTok, wherever you may go. Look at what you've posted, look at what trail you've created and so forth, because whether employers endorse it or not, hiring managers will often do just that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you don't want to appear to be polarizing,
Right.
too overly political, or this is the time to go out and clean up your social media.
Exactly.
Go through those
Exactly.
posts and delete them
Just,
that are not
just take a
appropriate.
look at, if I were looking at this through the lens of the employer and I was evaluating this person,
Right.
what would I want them to see?
Yeah, that's great advice. We often forget to do that. And then something that you posted years and years ago will come back to bite you. Oops.
Yep.
So I do want to share with you, one of the things that they always ask at the end, the interviewer will say, "Do you have any questions for me?" And I heard somebody say that a great question to ask the interviewer is, if I were the successful candidate and we were sitting here a year from now, what will I have done to make myself successful in your eyes?
Yeah.
And I love that question.
It is. It is a great question. What does success look like?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
What will I have done to be successful in your eyes? Because that's really pretty much telling you what all you need to be doing on the job to be considered a great hire.
Right?
And most of the time when that question is asked, people will say, "No, I don't have any questions."
Well, that's why I suggest going in with good and meaningful questions. And that is a
Right.
gem. That one is just a gem because
Yeah.
you really do get some insights. If the interviewer can't answer that question, maybe that tells you what you need to know.
There you go. How interested and engaged is the interviewer?
Or do they know, have they defined success?
That's right.
We just need somebody to come in and do this. We don't know what that means.
Are they just checking a box?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's good advice. Well, there's a lot to it, but when you're coming out of divorce, or you're going into divorce, and you might feel like it's somewhat hopeless, it is not. There's rich opportunities out there for you.
I always remind folks that are going through a career transition, it only takes one.
That's right.
It only takes one. One of the risks that I think that folks who have either been in a position for a very long time, and I would count the person that's been caring for their family in this population, is a misconception about needing to accept the first offer. Right? Because there is that I desperately need to work.
Right.
And although I see this and that and the other in this environment that just does not work for me, if somebody offers me a job, I've got to take it. No, you don't. It's far better to think a little longer term and not lower your own standards for what's acceptable to you as compared to waiting and continuing to push to find that one right opportunity. When I spoke about Robert Half earlier, one of the things that I've always recommended is if you associate with an agency that provides temporary help to organizations, and so that's Express Pros, that's Kelly, that's, there's plenty of organizations like that. It does a couple of things. It enables you to kind of brush the dust off in a relatively safe way. It enables you to get inside organizations and really see what the modern era of work looks like. It enables you to remove that immediate sense of, I've got to get a job because I need the income. And sometimes in getting inside those organizations, if you are very positive influence and impact, they might have an opportunity that maybe never even gets advertised.
That's right.
And it enables you to convert that temporary employment status into regular employment status.
And that's a fantastic bridge because you've trialed them and they've trialed you, and you can determine if it's a good fit.
Yep. Yeah. I just wanted to be sure to highlight.
I'm glad you did because I know there are a number of organizations that's the only way they hire permanent people is you have to be a temporary employee first.
Right.
And then if things are working out and the opportunity is there to move into a full-time role.
Yep.
So it's a good thing to think about. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. So, wow, there's so much to talk about and think about, but I think there's a good amount of light on the horizon, even if it has been decades since you've worked.
I think so. And it is the hardest job you'll ever have. Mm-hmm. The hardest job you'll ever have is finding a job. It is. There are days where you're so optimistic and you're so up because you got an invitation to go talk with somebody about an opportunity to explore that. You go through all of the mental preparation, the nerves, ideally playing your theme song in your head. I have one. And go in and give it your best shot, put your best foot forward, but also remember to interview that organization. And then there are days where nothing is happening. And it is the lowest of lows. And if you're a fan of Dr. Seuss, you already know the worst place to be, according to Dr. Seuss, is the waiting place.
That's right.
And that is the worst place to be. That is when you really need to tap into the closest friends and family that you have and just say, I want to come do something productive with you today so that I don't sit here and wallow.
Oh, that's great advice. Go mow somebody's lawn.
There's a ton of things
to do. Go grocery shopping for somebody.
Go wash their car.
Deliver flowers. Do something.
Right. Yes. Random acts of kindness.
Random acts of kindness will lift
welcome.
You.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And I will say, speaking of delivering, there is always, Instacart and DoorDash. They provide great bridges to finding that full-time job as well because you're very busy. You're meeting a lot of people. And it helps you from just sitting there all day long, ruminating and worrying about the next step.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that the days that are tough days can be very, very long days. And I love the idea of planning a commitment like that so that it's on your schedule so that if you get the opportunity to interview, you can say, I can't do that Wednesday, but I could do it Thursday.
That's great.
it gives you a little more sense of control.
Yes. And that's a time when you need a little bit more control, when your life seems out of control.
Yes.
Grasp those areas where you can control something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This is delightful. So I'm going to ask you a few personal questions now.
Okay.
All right. In your years of working with people, is there a person or story that particularly moved you?
So very early in my career, this is going to be entirely in the work context because it was so impactful in my life. Very early in my work career, I had the incredible fortune to work with Dr. W. Edwards Deming.
Oh, that's iconic.
Over a 4-year period. That was my formal education. I've got my Covenant College polo on today. I didn't graduate from college until after I'd moved to Chattanooga, and that was 10, 12 years after I had worked with Dr. Deming.
Wow.
But his philosophy for management really set foundationally how I look at organizations and creating success, and how imperative it is to account for the people in how organizations define and achieve their success. So maybe not the answer you were looking for, but I just would really be remiss if I didn't put that whole experience at the top of my list as being incredibly inspirational.
Oh, absolutely. That's fantastic. So, what book is on your bedside table?
Okay, it's on the bedside table. I haven't cracked it open yet, and it's Worthy.
Okay.
By Jamie Kern Lima. I saw her speak at the Global Leadership Summit last August, and she shared a few excerpts from this not yet published book at that time, and had read some other work by her and found her very validating. So maybe that is a great recommendation for folks that are listening to this podcast.
Okay. Worthy. We'll put that in the show notes. I've seen the title, but I haven't purchased that one yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
it's
great.
sitting there. It's waiting for me.
There are always a lot of books that I have on my bedside table waiting for me.
Me too.
So you are inspiring to a lot of people and
Thank
a lot
you.
of businesses, but who's inspiring you today?
So folks that know me well know that music is my art form of choice.
Okay.
And 20 years ago at B.B. King's 80th birthday party, we were introduced to a young artist by the name of Joe Bonamassa.
Oh, yes.
And so for the last 20 years, we have been traipsing around the countryside. In fact, just saw Joe here in Chattanooga last month. And it's been such a joy to watch his artistic acumen and his interests evolve, his capabilities evolve. And, my license plate is blues. So I put it out there that I really am inspired by music. And he in particular is somebody that I'm just excited to continue to watch grow. And he's like 15 years younger than me or something like that. So I anticipate a long runway of continuing to enjoy that.
Yes, and he's been to Chattanooga a couple of times.
He has.
Yeah.
He has. He played Riverbend in 2008 and has been to Chattanooga pretty much every year, pretty close to every year since then.
Wow, it's nice to be able to watch somebody grow into their career. And
a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's
fun.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for joining me today, Maggie.
Thank you for the invitation.
It's been an absolute pleasure. So would you share with our listeners how they can reach out to you, your social media, how they can follow you?
Sure. You can find me on LinkedIn, of course.
Of course. And Thankful Thursdays.
And yep, you can check out Thankful Thursdays. I also do a Talking About It Tuesday post. I try to keep those brief. Those are to really highlight candor and courage at work, which is a podcast that, again, it's the first of the month, 20 minutes. You can listen to it wherever you catch your favorite podcasts. But my website, hrhabitude.com, Habitude. So it's hrhabitude. And on there, you're welcome to connect with me, find time to connect with me personally. There's a link to my calendar, so you can always find time to reach out and connect.
Fantastic. And I will put all of that in the show notes.
Awesome.
It has been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you again for the invitation. I'm really honored.
Please join me on the next episode of the Silver Divorce Podcast. I also ask you to do me a favor and please follow this show and share it with people you know who are going through divorce. I'd love to hear from you at silverdivorcepodcast@gmail.com. This podcast is brought to you by our title sponsor, the Center for Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, and show sponsor, Medicare Misty. Center for Sports Medicine and Orthopedics is the area's leading provider of multi-specialty orthopedic care. Using innovative surgical techniques and technologies, our team of specialists deliver exceptional results backed by exceptional patient care. Learn more at sportmed.com. Medicare Misty is a real person who can help answer your Medicare questions. Get real help from her team at medicaremisty.com. Whether you are considering divorce or maybe you're newly in the divorce process, we'll help you on your journey and tell you things your attorney might not tell you. Until next time, remember, divorce, it's just one event. It does not define who you are. I'm Lisa, and I'll see you next time.